Hello there, I'm Hilton Samuel, and we are continuing the series called The 12 Christian Dating Myths That May Just Be Keeping You Single. Actually, we're on number 10. So if you have missed the first or the previous 9, we invite you to go back and listen to the episodes that dealt with those 9. If you want all 12, we're more than happy to email them to you. All you need to do is to pop over to godwantsyoumarried.com, click on the button that says 12 Christian Dating Myths That May Be Keeping You Single, and pop your name and email in the opt-in form right there, and we will speedily send those over to your email account. Now for number 10. He or she must display, and I have here in square brackets, all the qualities of a good husband or wife. Now, I need to go slow on this because, yes, I understand that there are some fundamental things that must be in place in order for you to make a decision on whether or not you could go ahead and make someone your husband or wife. And I am not suggesting in any way, shape or form, I like that term, that you should ignore red flags. You should ignore things that definitively say, well, you know, there's a question mark here. Maybe I should not go ahead with it. If there are deal breakers in the person, by deal breakers, I am talking about things that you will not countenance, you will not accept, that you know that you won't be able to stomach in a relationship, then obviously end the relationship. You know that person isn't for you and you need to move on. But I'm talking about people who have a long checklist and need someone, let me just expand this, and need someone to tick all the things on his or her checklist. Now they're almost looking for a perfect person, although they will tell you, no, I'm not looking for a perfect person. In other words, they are very picky. Now, I need to give a caveat here that you should have very high standards, and those standards must be in line with your core fundamental beliefs, principles, and ethics, and you must uphold those standards. Now, being picky, I mean being unnecessarily fussy about someone. Someone told me that, you know, simply because a guy's fingernail was dirty at one point in time, she ended the relationship with the guy, or didn't proceed in having any other dates with the person. Now, these little things can be corrected. If a guy doesn't have good dress sense, those could be worked on, you know. If he, you know, doesn't have I think there's a name for it, the manners that is necessary for good company. He maybe he chews with his mouth open and make too much noise when he's chewing. You know, these are little bad habits that, you know, if the person is teachable, if the person becomes aware of it, then the person can change. These are the things that I'm talking about. Now, let's take, for example, Kirsty. Kirsty was very frustrated with her relationship. She has been in the relationship for about a year now, and she is complaining that the boyfriend doesn't display any leadership qualities in her perception. She takes no initiative when it comes to things like prayer and Bible study, and this frustrates her no end. Now, obviously, Kirsty is right. If that is significant to her, then, you know, the relationship, she might need to reconsider the relationship. However, there is an interesting thing that's going on in the Christian church, and I spoke about it earlier. I like to elaborate on it some more. And in fact, I like to read an article and show you a video on it, and you should perhaps explore those two resources in greater detail than we have time to go into right now. There is this phenomenon where a lot of Christian women, their template or having a good man, a good prospective spouse, is that person has to be a spiritual leader. And I think that is just maybe a byproduct of the whole male leadership, headship kind of phenomenon that is in the Christian church, that the man must be the head, he must be a leader, he must take initiative, he must, and unfortunately this kind of gets a little bit muddied, because men are in the process of growth too. First, let me just show you this video. We don't have time. I won't be playing the video. I'll just show it to you, and I'll ask you to go and have a listen to that video. But I'll be looking at this article in a little bit more detail. Right. Okay, here we go. This article is by this lady. She calls herself the Peaceful Wife. That is quite a name. And it's called, "What Does It Really Mean for Our Husbands to Be Godly Leaders?" Just Google her. Her name is April Cassidy, the Peaceful Wife, and see if you agree with some of the things April is talking about. But what is more significant to me now is this article. And the article comes from ChristianityToday.com, and it is entitled, "He is Not a Spiritual Leader and Other Christian Myths." Let's just plow through the article quickly. Now, the author of the article, with I think she's some professor at a university, identifies the 2008 Pew Research survey, which seem to indicate that people rate women superior to men, surpassing men in the areas of intelligence, honesty, creativity, compassion, and friendliness when it comes to political and corporate leadership. Out of all of the 8 traits, respondents rank men as superior only in the trait of decision making. So many people, particularly Christians, think that women are better than men in these areas. Now the question is, what does this mean for Christian dating and marriage, in which many Christians believe the man should be the head, he should lead? Now she goes on to say that her husband and herself normally give premarital counsel to many of the young people on her campus, and she speaks about a girl, a young woman that she counseled before and met her about a year after and asked her about the relationship. And the response was, "I broke up with him a month or so ago," she said sheepishly. "And Sean and I tried to veil our shock." Why were they shocked? I'll explain that a little later. She explains a little later. A few minutes later, I asked her why. "Here's the answer. He's just not a spiritual leader," she answered. After we parted ways, Sean turned to me and said, "I can't help wondering how many otherwise beautiful relationships have ended due to the misconceptions about spiritual relationship." Or spiritual leadership, sorry. As we processed the news and recall some of our conversations with the couple, we remembered her saying that he was patient. He had a patient nature. He was intelligent, a hard worker, had a peaceful demeanor, which complemented her well. But she also mentioned that he really initiated prayer or Bible study. For her, in the end, not initiating in these areas was a deal breaker, even though we found them a highly compatible couple that simply need to iron out a few wrinkles. Then she goes on to talk about this quote, "He's not a spiritual leader." It seems that initiating prayer, Bible study, and other similar devotional activities is a litmus test for male spiritual leadership in some branches of the American church. And the common complaint by women on our campus is that men are failing in spiritual leadership. They aren't passing the litmus test. They are not initiating. Oh, man. Okay, I proceed. I'm reading directly from her because I just want to use her concepts, which are clearly better explained than I probably could. But after Sean's comment that day, I started wondering about other godly men, or all the godly men who may have other spiritual gifts, just not the ones traditionally considered male spiritual gifts. For example, what about men who have the gift of mercy or hospitality or service or encouragement, who are full of the fruits of the Spirit? Do we devalue them simply because they are not at the helm or out in front, but rather operating alongside their partner? Is initiating devotional activities within a relationship really what it means to lead? Wow, that's a good question to pause. Is it really contradicting God's will when a woman initiates prayer and Bible study with her significant other? Good question. Insightful question. What if her partner models a life characterized by love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faith, gentleness, and self-control? Is this not the Jesus life? Is such a man being derelict in his spiritual duties to wife and family? Now we're coming to the end soon. Stay with me. I have heard plenty of stories, get this, about men who dutifully initiate family devotions, men who appear to be spiritual leaders, but who lack the fruits of the Spirit. I've heard their wives and children use words and phrases such as hypocrite, and he has anger issues to describe them. I also know plenty of men who patiently lay down their lives for their families and friends, and sometimes even their enemies, even if they don't initiate devotions. These men are concretely other reference men who, based on the testimony of their wives, far surpass them when it comes to patience, kindness, and selflessness. These men embody love. A spiritual leader, she goes on to say, is someone who is full of the Holy Spirit, someone who evidences the fruit of the Spirit in increasing measure. Some women prefer that their partners initiate prayer and Bible study. Of course, they are free to have such preferences and even to believe that such initiation is a male spiritual gift. But we, as the larger Christian community, should find ways to recognize the men who don't initiate devotional activities and yet model Christ-like leadership because they display the fruits of the Spirit. Otherwise, we need to consider whether men who display the same visible pastoral and teaching gifts are truly leading in Christ-like ways. Well said, well said, well said. I encourage you to go and read this article, the full article, because sometimes many people overlook men because they do not have all of the qualities that they are looking for. I remember one young lady telling me, oh, she is not in the business of training men, because after you train them and they become desirable and eligible and attractive, they go off with some other person and leave you. Now, that's from a fair perspective. And I'm not saying that you have to train men. Many of us do need, men and women do need to grow and improve, and all we need is a teachable spirit. Now, lastly, I want to talk about the fact that some people don't countenance other men or whether men or women, because they don't have enough resources, whether it's house, land, and or car. I just say that if a man is lazy, then obviously stay clear. If he's progressive and ambitious, then you two of you can group together and pool your resources and energies together and grow in love and harmony. Talk soon as we